As soon as I realized how powerful this build was going to be, I immediately made a new rogue and started leveling up. And now I've tested enough to know just how amazing it really is and how well it's going to do in content similar to Abattoir of Zir or other future Uber endgame content with its infinite damage scaling interaction. Check this out. The idea for this build came from the campfire chat showcasing tier 1 and tier 10 Abattoir of Zir sigils, and especially on the tier 10, I had a sort of epiphany, especially after the D4 team said that they were focusing more on scaling health rather than damage as tiers go up. And then we saw a mostly fully built, super powerful Ball Lightning Sork basically get stuck at the very first champion mob pack inside of that tier 10 sigil. Immediately, the only thing that came to my mind was the Eyes in the Dark pants for Rogue, as this makes Death Trap activate infinitely until it kills something. And I realized that this is essentially the only way to do all 25 tiers of Abattoir of Zir without abusing bugged interactions of some kind. I'm looking at you, 22 max combo point rogues. And luckily, alongside all the other amazing changes in Season 2, we got proper support for ultimate ability scaling in the rogue class with the No Witnesses Paragon board and buffs to the Eyes in the Dark themselves. And having just tested out a Rain of Arrows build, I knew just how viable a build built around an ultimate skill could be if you solve the cooldown issues, which luckily the exposure key passive takes care of this all on its own. And that's not even mentioning the Death Trap perk itself, which takes 12 seconds off of it. But I decided to make the most interesting build that scales traps as much as possible, since every increased damage with traps adds a realistically infinite amount of damage per percentage we can lock down somewhere. So here's that build, and I'll go over the non-intuitive interactions and the playstyle of the build so your time isn't being wasted with me talking about shit you already know about. We utilize the decoy trap ring from Varshan, and I've tested this. It counts as one of your traps and its damage is increased from trap damage, and anything taunted by the decoy trap counts as affected by traps for the purposes of having the exposure key passive live. We smooth out the activation of the decoy trap with the aspect of quickening fog, so that a free smoke grenade is casted at the end of our dashes. Since smoke grenade is a subterfuge skill, what happens is that we dash, smoke grenade goes off, and then decoy trap goes off in a 1, 2, 3 kind of process. It's an extremely smooth style of play that you'll get addicted to very quickly, like I have. We utilize the aspect of explosive verve to add the trap tag to our smoke grenade, as well as all of the other stun grenades will be spawning with exposure and the aspect of artful initiative. And again, I've tested it thoroughly, and the stun grenades count as trap skills once we do this. And exposure can proc off of something that is stunned by itself, or with the aspect of artful initiative or the other sources of grenades. And we like to do this because of the playstyle we're going for, which is to be done fighting a pack of enemies, and then with the returning twisting blades portion of the skill, coupled with its Blade Dancer's aspect, we dash to the next group of enemies who are now affected by Smoke Grenade, which is a trap now as well, so they're dazed for a long ass time, and then the Twisting Blades return to you, and then spin, and then activating the exposure key passive off of the enemies affected by the smoke grenade, because again it is now a trap skill as well, but not before we place a poison trap to affect enemies with a damage over time effect to scale the anticipation vampiric power, and follow up with a death trap immediately after that, and then exposure procs a few times. Death trap kills something, so it resets its cooldown immediately most of the time, all while we're attacking with twisting blades some more, so that we can dash to the next pack and rinse and repeat and rinse and repeat. And about every other pack, decoy trap is off cooldown and ready to taunt the entire screen, which makes even ranged enemies walk towards it, and everything is grouped up and dozens of grenades are going off everywhere, and everything is poisoned and knocked down, stunned, dazed, being pulled into the black hole of pure annihilation and devastation. And that's where the idea for the build just gets crazy. Because of the health scaling of enemies in the late game, the sheer number of death traps we'll be able to have up, damaging enemies simultaneously, is as many as we can possibly manage to cast in the time we're given. Whether the mobs have 10 million health, or 10 billion health, with just one cast of Death Trap, we'll be able to do that much damage eventually. But if its cooldown is constantly resetting because of how many mobs we're proccing our exposure key passive off of, because they're all still alive because they all have so much health still, then we'll be able to cast dozens of them if the enemy's health pool is large enough. And a lot of people don't know, but you can have more than one Death Trap up at a time. Whether each one is individually affected by Eyes in the Dark's unique alteration to the skill, very hard to test. However, even if it doesn't affect each one individually, it's still amazing and you should definitely use it. In the build guide, I have Flicker Step, but that's not necessary at all. For rogues, we should probably be looking for triple or quadruple resistance boots in order to make up for that shortcoming of the class. But another thing that's great about this build is that you don't really need any uber uniques or bugged interactions in order to do enough damage to clear the highest level of content in the game. Now, if you happen to have Doombringer or Shaco, obviously that would not hurt, and you could rearrange the aspects into a setup that allows for those two to exist without messing up any of our important interactions. And I've tested this build up to around level 80 now, and I'm planning on pushing it further. It's not going to be ready for release of Abattoir of Zir, but I know for a fact that it's probably going to be the best overall Abattoir of Zir build for Rogue as soon as Season 3 and any future updates come around where they balance things and fix bugs. All the things that we know now that are extremely overpowered, like Zafal's Corroded Signet procs, and Tybalt's Will is probably going to be extremely buffed, and the bug with its interaction with combo points is going to be fixed as well, most likely. So this build is probably going to be the best bet for rogues in the long term. Right now, you know, whatever, but mark my words, it's just going to be so sick. So that's it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, definitely let me know. And if you use this build to take on the Abattoir of Zir, please let me know how it goes. I'd love to hear about it. Peace and love.